Hey y'all, it's Crystal. Fiber Tardy here. And today, well, we're closing out Garbaugust. Yes, the last day of August. And Garbaugust is over. This has been a month-long reading event where we've just been reading trashy books, reading fun, trashy books, and having discussions about trash and why do we call books trashy? What is trash? What's a guilty pleasure? Why do we do this to ourselves? I don't know. we've chatted about it all this month through all over BookTube, and I tell you what, I've just had a hell of a good time. I've had a really fun time with this event. So first of all, just a big thank you to Ollie over at Criminality, of course, for putting it all together. This whole shebang. What a success it's been, I think. Ollie, you did a really wonderful job. Really sparked some good conversation here on BookTube. And I just want to thank you again for asking me to take part as a co-host. And man, like I said, I just had so much fun. I did 4 weekly reading vlogs that I really had a fun time putting together. Getting some reactions on some of these books, which were a little crazy, shall we say. I even made a kitty litter cake. I mean, to kick off the whole thing. And that was fun too. So yeah, today we're just gonna talk. I'm gonna just run through all the things I read for Garbaugust really quickly and wrap this thing up. All right, so let's get going. And I'm gonna start with some of the books. Now, I didn't get to all the books on my TBR, as you do. I did have a few DNFs, so I'll just mention those really quickly. Pierce Anthony and Robert E. Margroff's The ESP Worm. No, thank you. I didn't like the way that the women were being portrayed in this book. It was gross. One of the first books I tried to read was A Woman of the Future by David Ireland. I just had a hard time getting into this one. I still may come back to this one. I may not, though. I don't know. I'm still like a little curious, but the writing style for this one was just, it was hard to get into, and I was a little confused, to be honest. And The Initiation of PB 500 by Kyle Stone was just a little too spicy, a little too erotic for me. It crossed some boundaries for me that were just uncomfortable for me personally. So, but honestly, 3 out of the, 20 things I read, that's doing pretty good. I did make a start on Silverglass by J.F. Rifkin too. I didn't finish it, but this, I'm definitely going to come back to this and kind of just start it over at some point. It sounds like a really fun book. I just didn't have time for it, but I'll get back to that one at some point. So, everything else I have finished, well, just about. I will start, first of all, with this, Angora Fever. This is some collected short stories of Edward D. Wood Jr., the, supposedly worst, director in Hollywood who made all those really bad movies. And he also wrote really bad short stories. And so this is a collection of stories that were published in primarily the 1970s and in different kind of like pulp magazines and kind of salacious, kind of erotic magazines, that kind of thing. And interesting stories. There's over 50 stories, so I read 30-something stories in here. I got a good chunk done. I'll finish these definitely at some point also. But I just will say that every time there's a flag is when he mentions either a sweater or Angora or an Angora sweater. Yeah. Quite a lot. He really, talks. A lot of these stories are kind of about people that are kind of like on the fringes, right? There's a lot of like prostitutes. There's several stories about like assassins or hired killers, people that are like scraping by, maybe kind of like runaways, people that like to dress in women's clothing, particularly Angora sweaters. A lot of stories about lesbians, which I guess was a taboo at the time. I don't know. Yeah, it was just very strange stories, quite explicit at times with the sex, which was, I didn't quite know what to expect as far as that going in. Some of them were pretty, pretty explicit. A lot of people getting murdered and stuff too. Some of them leaned horror, some of them leaned some sci-fi. and then just like those more kind of slice of life type characters, but they were also like I said, those fringe people that live on the fringe. I think this book was perfect for Garbaugust, and some of the stories most of them were a lot of fun. Honestly, there were a few that was like, that really wasn't very good. He's not the best writer, but they're like a few pages long. It's a fun time. So yeah, I did have a good time with that. So let's get into the actual books. I did start off. Well, let's just run through all the absolutely horrible erotic short stories that I read, particularly for week 1 of Garbaugust, which was Excessive Sex and Violence week. I read a slew. I read a little handful of those. I read a block of some kind of stories that were all written by Leonard Delaney, and they were, literally like 15, 20-page short stories. You can get them all on Kindle Unlimited, and they're crazy town. I'm telling you, they're wacky. So I read Taken by the Tetris Blocks, Conquered by Clippy, Pounded by Pluto, Coaxed by the Copyright Page, Invaded by the iWatch. Yeah, they're not so good, but they're kind of interesting at least, right? The best one was the Tetris Blocks one, I will say. I also read 2 dinosaur loves, like a weird dinosaur erotica. The first one being Taken. Nope. Where is it at? I lost my list here. I read Taken by the T-Rex. And what's the Triceratops? Oh yeah, Ravished by the Triceratops. These are both by Christy Sims. The Triceratops one was just a little bit better than the T-Rex. The T-Rex one was weird. It was a little like, the Triceratops one was better. They're both terrible, but yeah. And I haven't talked about these yet because I just read them a couple of days ago because I had to check off my Garbingo board, right? And so I read Babysitter for a Firefighter by Lexi Rose, another like erotic short story, and I used that one for nudity on the cover. And then Claiming His, I think it was called, by Isabella Starr, which is a shifter romance. Yeah, a shifter romance. The guy is a bear shifter. Nice short story, didn't take me very long. Checked off that Garbingo card. I did also use Taken by the Tetris Blocks for the Dirty Book, also for the Garbingo card. Okay, so let's get into the actual books. I read The Swarm by Arthur Herzog. As we discussed killer animal books, are they always trashy? Maybe so. This one was okay. It was about killer African bees that have invaded the U.S. and it was pretty okay. It was a bit more sciencey than I was expecting. I would have liked a few more like swarm kills. It's a killer bee book, but it was entertaining, and I'd recommend it if you do like animal attack books because it was a fun time. Yeah. And then let's see. I don't want to miss anything on my list. Alright, and then I read the Ezreal Uprising by Alan Thompson. And of course, I think there was a Garbingo card to read a book with a killer animal, right? Yeah. The Ezreal Uprising by Alan Thompson. I had a fun time with this one, actually. This is it's set 10 years after Russia has conquered and taken over America, of course, and there are these little pockets of resistance up and down the East Coast. And West Coast too, but we're mostly on the East Coast, and we're following this woman who's our main character actually, and who is really high up in the ranks of this resistance, and we follow as they're about to, rise up and finally take the country back. And I had a fun time with this one because it was interesting because the people that were into the resistance were a lot of women because they weren't being used in like work camps, a lot of like disabled people, a lot of older women. There's like a pretty older woman that is a pretty main character also. I just had a good time with this. It was action, there was the intrigue. It was really interesting, so I had a fun time with this one. And I didn't use this one on the Garbingo card for books that kind of cash in on a moral panic because of course the Soviets taking over America, at this time period that this was written, which I think was the sort of early 80s. That was a big fear, Yeah, 1982. I had a fun time with that one. All right, next up, I then finished Brother Death, by Steve Perry. And this is part of a series that I figured out. This is a sci-fi book featuring this guy right here, who is he uses these cool like arm darts things, which is kind of interesting. There's a murder mystery in here also. He and his sister work together to try to solve a mystery. There's several scenes of people working out in the nude. He and his sister love to work out in the nude, separately, not together. But it was fun. I don't know. I had a good time with that one. Yeah. And then, oh me oh my, I read Candy. This is by Maxwell Kent, which is a pseudonym. So I think this is the book that I used for the book written by a author with a pseudonym on the Garbaugust card. This is basically a satire of Candide by Voltaire, and it was pretty okay. Started off pretty more interesting. What's words I'm trying to say? It started off, I was like really into it, right? It kind of petered off towards the end because I got kind of over the. It got repetitive, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Excuse me. But I have a young woman named Candy who sets off on an adventure to have sex with all kinds of people, and it's crazy. There's parts of it that are just absurd and sometimes funny. Candy's just this really naive person, and then I did read Candide as well just so I could compare, and it definitely there are definitely some parallels with Candy and Candide, and so that was fun to actually do that little comparison also, and yeah, it was a fun time, but the ending kind of went a little downhill. I was kind of like, let's wrap it up, but I say definitely controversial of its time. Yeah, but it was fun. Let's see, I then dug into The Tormented by Dorothy Daniels. I really enjoyed this one. This is a classic kind of gothic story, and this is fit the Garbaugust prompt for the book with the cigarette ad inside, and I really liked this story. It very, again, gothic, all those gothic feels, very atmospheric. We're following a young woman here who her family used to own this plantation. Is it South Carolina? I'm forgetting now the state, but her father had fallen on hard times and all that kind of stuff, and then they passed away, and she lost the property, essentially, and was out, working or whatever, and then she gets called in to be a governess by none other than the current owners of this house that's called the Pillars, right? The Pillars is this big plantation home. It's set in the sort of the late 1800s, and the people that brought her there kind of had ulterior motives because they think the house is now haunted, and possibly by her mother because someone keeps screaming her name. So I don't know. Like I said, I had a really fun time with this one. Was this my favorite? In the contender for the favorite of Garbaugust, I'm gonna be honest, I really liked this one a heck of a whole lot, so that was fun. Okay, then I read Nerves by Lester Del Rey. Remind you again of this amazing cover. And this is basically about a nuclear power plant that is, about to melt down. There's an accident that happened, and we're following a couple people as they're trying to figure out what's going on and try to save the world from blowing up. And that's essentially the story. It was actually a bit boring and slow at times. I think I was expecting this in the book. Like, I was like, where's the gore? Where's like people's skin melting off? Didn't quite give me that. But it was interesting. I think it definitely also kind of played on those fears of this new kind of atomic power. This was written in sort of the late 1940s. So it definitely played off those fears of nuclear power plants, I'm sure, that were popping up, over, in the country throughout that time period, and definitely kind of played off on those fears. It was okay. It was okay. I then dug into some TV tie-in books. Yeah, I read a Full House book. I know you're jealous. This one is Way to Go Chipmunk Cheeks. And this one really, even though it's small, it's basically like a middle grade story. There were really about maybe 4 or 5 sort of episode storylines that kind of, went through, this book. The main one being when DJ is trying to lose weight for a pool party. And I remember that being a bit controversial at the time. I didn't watch the episode that was based on, and I totally remember watching it back in the day. So this one, it was fun. It's Full House, right? I mean, it's Full House. What do you want, right? I dug into my V.C. Andrews book, Archangel, book 2. Yes, book 2 of the Castile series, and I did listen to this one on audiobook, and I like this one. I really like this series. We're following Heaven in this series as she's, a bit older, and, the things that she goes through. But I really like this series of, she's coming from basically this dirt poor Appalachian household, and how she, she goes to like a prestigious school because she's got other relatives that are rich. It's a story, it's a thing, but I really liked that a lot. Might be contender for the best ofs. We'll see. We'll think about it. Beware of the Stranger by Janet Daly. This is an old Mills and Boone book, and this one was okay too. I didn't really understand what this one was about when I went into it, though. I thought it's a bit, maybe a bit darker than I was expecting, because we follow this young woman who is the daughter of a really rich man, and a lot of people are wanting to kind of get to him, that kind of stuff. Sometimes I use her to do that, like men, like to try to get ahead, that kind of thing. But anyway, she's taken to this like lake house. She thinks it's under the guise of like she's going to meet her father there. It turns into a whole thing where maybe she thinks she's kidnapped. Maybe she's fallen in love with the like kidnapper. It went a little, like I said, it went a little weird. No, it wasn't quite what I was expecting from this book, especially since it was written in, what was this, like the 70s? So I was like, Janet Daly, okay, what you doing here, 1978? But it was okay. I then read a Saved by the Bell book. Yeah, more TV tie-in books. This is Kelly's Hero, in which Kelly is sexually harassed by her boss. Yeah, that was a good time. And another TV tie-in book, I read Doctor Who and the Unearthly Child. This is basically a novelization of the very first Doctor Who. And I didn't ever get around to watching that again, but maybe soon, so I can kind of do a compare and contrast, because it, slim little book. But it was fun. I mean, I like Doctor Who, so this was fun. It was fun to be to be on the TARDIS with the Doctor, right? All right. Another romance book I read, Teaming Up by Abby Gaines, part of the NASCAR romance series. And this one was okay also. It had that kind of trope where like she's like really ill, she has an illness that it's life-threatening, and she's trying to like check off a bucket list, and this guy is he's like a chief of the like pit crew, and he gets wrapped up in everything, and then her father's involved. It's the whole thing, and it was okay. I don't particularly like that like deathbed type of stuff. I don't know. It was okay. I would try another NASCAR romance that maybe didn't have that kind of storyline, What are you going to do? I did Recycle the Werewolf by Stephen King. I don't know. Some of us have read Stephen King for Garbaugust. Is Stephen King trash? I mean, I don't know. I think not. Overall, some of his books are bad. But I had a fun time with this one. It's short and sweet. It's got really cool illustrations in there, and each month it goes monthly, so January, February through the December, and so the cycle of the werewolf and what this werewolf is doing to this little town, and I thought it was pretty good. I had a fun time with that one, actually. I then listened to the audiobook for I Am Ozzy by, you guessed it, Ozzy Osbourne, and that was a lot of fun. I like that. I love a good celebrity memoir, and Ozzy Osbourne, he's just a cool cat, right? I think he's just a cool guy. He's super interesting. He's led a very interesting life, and this audiobook was a lot of fun. All right, I read case 1 of the Nancy Drew files, Secrets Can Kill. This clicked my Garbingo checkmark for a book that has over 100 books in the series. This has 120 something books, I believe. And I was like, are these trashy? Because Nancy Drew, in general, we wouldn't think it's trashy, because she's Nancy Drew. But the Nancy Drew files, they were written more probably for like a YA sort of audience, with a bit more kind of romance thrown into the mix. And so that, to me, that bumped it up to a bit more of a soap opera type of story. So she is still solving, cases, but there's actually like death, like someone dies in this book. I feel like Nancy Drew books, no one really actually dies. I've only read a couple of those though. But someone's dead in this, and I mean all kinds of stuff. Definitely a bit more, like I said, for an older type of audience, a bit more of a soap opera, so maybe it leans a bit more to the trashy side. But I thought it was a lot of fun, and I got a slew of these books, and I'll definitely read them. And I don't know if I'll collect the whole series, but I bought all these at a thrift store one day, and I'll definitely read the ones that I have on my shelf. They were fun. And then let's see. Whoops. I read The Searing, and I didn't really like it. I didn't expect to like it. I went into this knowing that I would probably hate it. I did hate this book, which was actually really unfortunate, because the ideas, the things that are going on in this book are actually kind of interesting, and then the explanation for what's happening in this book is pretty interesting. But there's a young girl in here that is autistic, and the language around that character and the way she's portrayed is absolutely offensive and gross, and this is a product of its time. This was written in 1970 something. I forgot. Let me look for you, because I'm already looking. In 1980. Definitely product of the time. Lots of R-word usage, and just that stuff was really icky. So maybe the worst I read. I don't know. I dropped this book. Let me pick it up. I've gone out on a bang, though. I did finish a book up just today, the last day of August. Michelle Remembers. This is by Michelle Smith and Lawrence Patzer, MD. The true story of our dear Michelle's time over the course of several months being a pawn of a satanic cult in a ploy to conjure Satan. And she is working with this psychiatrist, Dr. Lawrence Patzer, as she is going through regressive, memory therapy, essentially, where she's like remembering childhood trauma, which was a thing back in the 70s. It seemed like I have all this childhood trauma. This was terrible. Maybe this is the worst book I ever. Was this worse? Was this worse than The Searing? I think so. This was really bad. It was terribly written, first of all. God awfully written. I struggled to even finish it. But I was going to power through because I had to know. And then, of course, it's a bunch of bullshit because this is a lie. This was all a lie. All of this has been debunked. That, all of this shit is made up. None of this has happened. And this was really a forefront in starting the satanic panic of this time period. So this was written in 1970. Was it 1977? 1980 also. So, but I think her remembering things was that late 1970s. Supposedly this all happened when she was 5 years old. So she was in her late 20s when she was remembering things. It's got this badass cover. But this is terrible. I don't recommend reading this because unless you just are curious about what happens, because some of the things that she supposedly went through were pretty terrible. Lots of abuse, and it's bad, but like I'm going to spoil a little bit at the ending for you because I don't think you're going to read the book. But at the very ending, as she's like, they're like the final, the Feast of the Beast, they call it. The final sort of like brouhaha ceremony where all of the Satanists have come together. And like tonight's the night. Satan is coming tonight. And he does. He like wraps his tail around her neck. Let me tell you. It's like the stereotypical like cloven hoofed Satan. I mean, it's crazy. And then while this is going on, she's getting visited by like Mary, Jesus' dad, Jesus' mom, Jesus, the Archangel Michael. I mean, everyone's just visiting her and saying, hang in there, you're gonna make it through to the other side, and one day you're gonna tell your story. Not today, but one day, you're going to remember all this, and you're going to have a hell of a story to tell. Yeah, it's really bad. But, yeah. So I ended on a low as far as enjoyment. But, honestly, it's a little fun, too, to kind of just see what the bullshit, meter was on this one. It was pretty high. So I ended on a high note, I think, as far as trash goes. Yeah, right? So, yeah, that was my Garbaugust. I read a hell of a lot of books. I read so much this month. And I even have books that aren't Garbaugusty, so I'm going to have a separate wrap-up for my non-Garbaugust books. I read a shit ton of books this month. I'm so excited. So yeah, that's what I read. I had a great time. I'm going to continue reading trash. I mean, I got so many books on my shelves, a lot that I've picked up for Garbaugust, or inspired by Garbaugust. And yeah, so I'm going to continue, reading trash. Trash is a way of life, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to don't feel bad about it. I think that's the point of Garbaugust is, just enjoy what you read. Don't worry about what other people think. Yeah. So, I'll end. These were probably my two favorites for sure for Garbaugust for the month. Yeah. So, yeah. Let me know what you read. What was your best? What was your highs and your lows for Garbaugust? And thanks, Ollie, again for including me. Let me tag along on this trashy adventure. It's been super smelly, and hopefully we'll do it again in the future. And to all my fellow co-hosts, I've just enjoyed watching your videos, and everyone else who did Garbaugust videos or Instagram, everywhere that there was Garbaugust stuff. I enjoyed watching all of it. So I'm gonna just wrap it up there, and yeah, thanks for watching, and till next time, stay smelly. Bye guys.